The sterile CEO discovers the impossible truth. Brutal twist alert. A millionaire CEO, convinced of his sterility, hosts a lavish winter gala until his ex-wife walks in with 2 children, identical to him. Would you dare to confront a 5-year lie? Before the story begins, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us what part of the world you're watching from. Your support is our biggest motivation. Subscribe to the channel. Now get comfortable and enjoy the story. 1. The Broken Mirror of Miami. The brilliant chandeliers of the Vizcaya Museum and Gardens projected diamond slivers of light across the grand ballroom as Julian Vance, the most celebrated biotech innovator in Miami, oversaw his annual winter charity gala with quiet satisfaction. At 42, Julian had conquered the renewable energy sector with his revolutionary company, Aeronova, transforming himself from a daring founder into one of the wealthiest men in the country. "Another successful event, Mr. Vance," commented his assistant Chloe, handing him a glass of vintage champagne. "The donation total has already surpassed last year's by 30%. Julian nodded, his steel blue eyes scanning the room filled with investors, celebrities, and philanthropists who had paid $10,000 a plate to support his foundation, dedicated to making advanced medical technology accessible to underserved communities. "That is excellent news," he replied, though his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Despite all his success, the waterfront mansion, the Brickell penthouse, the private jet, the billions in his bank account, Julian carried a deep emptiness no amount of wealth could fill. The doctors had confirmed it 5 years ago. He was sterile. The news had devastated his marriage to Eleanor, the love of his life, who desperately wanted children. Their divorce, soon after the diagnosis, still haunted him. "Sir," Chloe touched his arm, lowering her voice to a whisper, "I must alert you. Eleanor Reed has just arrived." Julian froze, the champagne glass halfway to his lips. "Eleanor, here." She wasn't on the guest list. She was invited by Dr. Henderson from the Miami Children's Hospital. Apparently she's been doing fundraising work for their pediatric wing, but Julian wasn't listening anymore. His eyes had found her across the crowded ballroom. Eleanor was still breathtakingly beautiful in an emerald-colored gown that complemented her auburn hair. His heart hammered against his ribs as if trying to escape his chest. Then he noticed them. 2 small children, a boy and a girl, about 5 or 6 years old, standing close to Eleanor. They were twins, with sun-kissed blonde hair, fair skin, and unmistakable steel blue eyes. Vance's eyes. His eyes. The champagne glass slipped from Julian's fingers, shattering against the marble floor. Nearby conversation stopped, and guests turned to stare. But Julian couldn't move. He couldn't speak. He couldn't look away from the impossible truth before him. "Sir?" Chloe's concerned voice seemed to come from miles away. "Are you all right?" Julian finally found his voice, though it was barely a whisper. "Those children with Eleanor, they look exactly like me." 2. The eyes of revelation. Julian gripped the edge of the marble bar, fighting to steady his breathing. The faces of the children had shaken him to the core. Those eyes, that nose, even the way the little boy tilted his head, were unmistakably Vance traits. "Dr. Guzman," he whispered to his personal physician, Dr. Eric Guzman, who had confirmed his infertility years ago and who was present at the gala. "Are you absolutely sure about my diagnosis?" Dr. Guzman shifted uncomfortably. "Medicine is not always exact, Julian. There is a small margin for—" "A small margin?" Julian's voice rose sharply before he checked himself. "You told me there was no chance. 0. "Technically, I said the probability was extremely low," Guzman clarified, his eyes darting nervously around the room. "Tests can sometimes—" Chloe appeared at Julian's elbow. Sir. Eleanor is approaching. Julian turned to see Eleanor gliding across the floor, her emerald dress catching the light. The twins stayed close to her, their curious eyes taking in the ballroom's splendor. Julian. Eleanor's voice was controlled but tense. It's been a long time. 5 years, he countered, unable to look away from the children. You didn't tell me you had children. The little girl whispered something to Eleanor, who knelt to reply. The boy looked openly at Julian, studying his face with a peculiar intensity. I tried to reach you, Eleanor said softly. Many times. A waiter passed with champagne. Julian took a glass, but did not drink. I never received any messages, he countered, confusion clouding his features. Eleanor's eyes hardened slightly. Your former assistant, Victor, assured me the messages were delivered. Victor, Julian's former right-hand man, who had abruptly left to work for Marcus Thorne, Julian's main rival. A chill ran down his spine as the pieces started to click into place. I see, he said simply, though his mind was racing with implications. The little girl tugged on Eleanor's dress. Mommy, is this the man from the photos? Eleanor flushed, clearly uncomfortable. Sophia, please give me a moment with Mr. Vance. The boy continued to stare, unfazed. You have eyes just like mine, he suddenly declared. Julian knelt to the boy's level, his heart pounding. What is your name? I'm Lucas, and that is Sophia. We're twins, he announced proudly. We are 5.5. 5.5. Julian did the quick math. Conception would have occurred just before their separation, before the infertility diagnosis. Eleanor? Julian's voice was barely audible. We need to talk. Before she could answer, the band struck up a new song, and the crowd stirred around them. Not here, Eleanor warned, her eyes darting toward a nearby reporter scribbling notes. Not now. Call to action. Julian is closing in on the truth. Give this video a thumbs up if you think Victor was bribed by Marcus Thorne. 3. The adversary's move. The crystal sound of a spoon tapping a glass cut through the ballroom's murmur. Marcus Thorne, CEO of Thorne Capital and Julian's most formidable competitor, stood on the small stage, demanding attention. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus announced, his voice smooth as velvet. As we celebrate tonight's charitable achievements, let us recognize our host, Julian Vance. Applause rippled through the crowd. Julian nodded stiffly, painfully aware of Eleanor and the twins standing just a few feet away. Julian's medical innovations have changed countless lives, Marcus continued, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, though I hear tonight may hold even more surprising revelations for him. A confused murmur swept through the crowd. Julian tensed, recognizing the subtle threat. Marcus's gaze flicked meaningfully toward Eleanor and the twins as the speech concluded. Julian guided Eleanor and the children to a quiet alcove away from prying eyes. Chloe stood guard nearby, deflecting the curious. How long has Marcus known about the children? Julian asked, his voice low. Eleanor's eyes widened. I do not discuss our children with Marcus. Our children, Julian repeated, the words strange on his tongue. Are they mine, Eleanor? She looked him straight on. Yes, Julian, they are yours. The confirmation, though expected, hit him like a physical impact. He leaned against the wall. I tried to tell you, Eleanor continued. I called, sent emails, even went to your office, but Victor always intercepted me. Eventually, I received legal documents from your team warning me against further contact. I never authorized any such documents, Julian said, shock evident in his voice. The conversation paused as Sophia wandered away from the alcove, drawn by the glittering decorations. She approached a towering ice sculpture, reaching out her small hand to touch it. Sophia, be careful, Eleanor called out. Julian moved faster, reaching the little girl and gently guiding her hand away from the ice. It's very cold, he explained, kneeling to her height. It might stick to your fingers. Sophia studied him with curious eyes. His eyes. Are you my daddy? She asked innocently. The question hung in the air between them, stealing Julian's breath. Before he could answer, a camera flash exploded nearby. Mr. Vance, any comment on your relationship with these children? Shouted a voice Julian recognized as Ben Carter, a well-known gossip columnist. Eleanor quickly pulled Sophia to her side, while Julian rose to his full height, blocking Carter's view of the children. This is a private conversation at a charity event, Julian stated coldly. I suggest you focus on the Foundation's work. Carter smirked, looking at his camera. I think I have what I needed. As the journalist slid away into the crowd, Julian exchanged a look of deep concern with Eleanor. The night was unraveling faster than either of them could control. 4. The labyrinth and the conflict. Julian strode rapidly across the crowded ballroom, Eleanor and the twins following close behind. His mind raced as he led them toward his private office in the far wing of the mansion. Chloe cleared the path, ensuring no one blocked their escape from the prying eyes and whispers that now followed them. In here, Julian said, opening the door to a warmly lit study. Eleanor ushered the children inside, their eyes wide, taking in the floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and the massive desk overlooking the frost-covered gardens. Once the door closed behind them, the noise of the gala faded to a distant hum. Julian's shoulders slumped as the tension partially released from his body. You said you tried to reach me, he said, turning to Eleanor. When exactly? As soon as I knew I was pregnant, she replied, helping the twins out of their dress jackets. Roughly a month after our divorce was finalized, Julian ran a hand through his hair, pacing the Persian rug. I never received a single message. Not one. Eleanor. Lucas had wandered over to Julian's desk, examining a framed photograph. Mommy, that's you! He exclaimed, pointing to a wedding photo Julian had never taken down. Eleanor's expression softened momentarily before she turned back to Julian. Victor told me you wanted nothing to do with us. He said you were devastated by the infertility and couldn't bear the reminder. And you believed that? Julian asked, his voice rising. After 10 years together? What was I supposed to think? Eleanor's eyes flashed. You shut me out after the diagnosis. You buried yourself in work. The divorce was your idea, Julian. Sophia tugged on Eleanor's dress. Mommy, I'm thirsty. Chloe, who had been standing silently by the door, stepped forward. I can take them for some juice if you don't mind. Eleanor hesitated, then nodded. Stay together, all right? Mommy will be right here talking to Mr. Vance. Is he our daddy? Sophia asked bluntly, looking between the adults. The room fell silent. Julian felt his heart pound in his chest as he waited for Eleanor's answer. That's what we are talking about, darling, Eleanor said finally. Go with Ms. Chloe now. After Chloe led the children away, Julian sank into his leather armchair, feeling as if the ground beneath him had permanently shifted. They are beautiful, Eleanor, he whispered. They look like my mother. I know, she replied softly. Sophia has her musical talent too, and Lucas has your mind for puzzles. Julian buried his face in his hands. 5 years. I've missed 5 years of their lives. A soft knock interrupted them. Chloe re-entered, her face grim. Sir, I'm sorry, but Mr. Carter is showing those photos to guests, and Mr. Thorne is making insinuations about your personal situation affecting company stability. Julian's jaw tightened. This was coordinated. Marcus must have invited Carter himself. What do we do? Eleanor asked, worry etched into her face. Julian's eyes hardened with resolve. We take control of the narrative before they can. 5. Exposing the conspiracy. A blanket of tension hung over the mansion as the first pale light of morning began to filter through the study windows. Julian quickly organized the evidence of Marcus's conspiracy that Chloe had gathered overnight. This is solid, Julian said, organizing the evidence into a leather brief. The emails from Marcus to Victor, The falsified medical reports. The intercepted messages from Eleanor. It's all here. Mr. Thorne has called an emergency virtual board meeting for noon today, Chloe informed him. He's trying to force a vote before we can present our evidence. Julian exchanged glances with Eleanor. We need to change our approach. Instead of defending, we attack. Carter's interview is our platform. Eleanor's eyes widened. You want to publicly expose Marcus? It's our best option, Julian replied firmly. We release the evidence during the interview, then present it formally at the board meeting. 20 minutes later, Marcus walked into Julian's study. His usual polished demeanor was slightly frayed. Julian, he began smoothly, refusing the offered seat. I think we got off on the wrong foot. This situation could benefit both of us if handled correctly. I'm listening, Julian said. Simple. You resign as CEO, citing family reasons. I take over the leadership temporarily. The board assigns you a generous chairman emeritus position. Your reputation remains intact, and your new family avoids unnecessary scrutiny. Julian's expression hardened. And if I refuse? Marcus's veneer of friendliness vanished. Then I will ensure every tabloid in the country portrays you as an irresponsible father who abandoned his obligations. Julian stepped forward, his voice dangerously quiet. You underestimate me, Marcus. You always have. Julian grabbed the leather brief from his desk and pulled out several printed emails. Before you continue your threats, Marcus, you should know that we have evidence of your corporate espionage, falsifying medical records, bribing my personal assistant, intercepting private communications. That's not just unethical. It's illegal. Marcus leafed through the documents, his confidence visibly cracking. This could be fabricated. Your word against mine. Not entirely, Julian countered calmly. Victor has agreed to testify in exchange for immunity, and Dr. Guzman has provided a sworn statement regarding the manipulation of my medical tests. Is this blackmail, Julian? No, Julian declared firmly. This is accountability. You manipulated my life. You destroyed my marriage and separated me from my children for 5 years. There is no deal to be made here. A flash of genuine fear crossed Marcus's face. You're bluffing. Taking this public would damage Aeronova. Perhaps short-term, Julian conceded. But the company will recover. Can you say the same for your reputation? Marcus stormed out. Eleanor entered, worry evident in her expression. He's cornered and he knows it, Julian replied. Where are the twins? With the housekeeper making snow angels in the courtyard, Eleanor said with a small smile. They're having a blast. Julian looked out the window, seeing his children playing. They deserve better than to have their lives turned into tabloid fodder. What are you thinking? I'm thinking we change the focus of the interview. Instead of exposing Marcus, we focus on our family story. The corporate sabotage becomes a footnote instead of the headline. A positive narrative instead of a vengeful one. I like that plan. 6. The reunion and the legacy. The mansion's sunroom provided an elegant backdrop for the interview. Carter sat across from Julian and Eleanor. So, to be clear, Carter said, you claim you only discovered you were the father of these children last night at your own charity gala? That is correct. Julian nodded. For 5 years, I believed I was sterile, due to a medical diagnosis that, as we now know, was deliberately manipulated. And you tried to inform Mr. Vance about the pregnancy? Multiple times, Eleanor confirmed. I was intercepted by his then assistant, who assured me Julian wanted nothing to do with me or the children. We have evidence of this, Julian said, sliding the folder across the table. What you'll find in there proves corporate sabotage at the highest level. However, he held up a hand, we are providing this only as background context. Our focus today is not retribution. It's not? Carter seemed genuinely surprised. No, Julian replied firmly. It's reunification. Knowing I am the father of 2 extraordinary children is the greatest gift I could have received. I have lost 5 years with them. I will not lose another day to corporate politics or scandal. Eleanor took Julian's hand. We want to move forward. As a family, the twins deserve that chance. As the interview continued, sounds of children's laughter drifted through the sunroom windows. Sophia and Lucas were building a snowman in the courtyard. After Carter left, Julian went to his office for the virtual board meeting. Eleanor stood just out of camera view. "Gentlemen, ladies," he began. "I understand there are concerns over the recent events in my personal life. Let me address them directly. For 5 years, I believed I was sterile, due to medical tests I now know were deliberately falsified." Marcus, centered in the virtual gallery, interrupted. "Julian, while we sympathize with your personal situation, the board is concerned about the impact on shareholder confidence. Perhaps a temporary leadership transition." "Let me stop you right there, Marcus," Julian interrupted, his voice firm. "What affects shareholder confidence is not my newly discovered family, but the corporate espionage that personally targeted me." Julian shared his screen, displaying the first damning email between Marcus and Victor. The virtual room fell silent. "There are dozens more documents like this," Julian continued. "They prove Marcus orchestrated the falsification of my medical records and blocked all communication from my ex-wife regarding her pregnancy. These actions were designed to destabilize me emotionally and professionally." After a tense few minutes, the board regrouped. Marcus was conspicuously absent. "Marcus has tendered his immediate resignation from the board," announced Harrison Wells. Relief washed over Julian as he felt Eleanor's hand squeeze his shoulder off camera. "It's over," Eleanor whispered. "It's not over," he corrected softly. "It's just beginning." They found the twins in the kitchen. "Daddy!" Sophia cheered when she saw Julian. "We made a snow family outside. Come see." Julian knelt beside them. "I would love to see your snow family. But first, I have something important to tell you both. You know I just found out I'm your daddy, right? Well, some bad people tried to keep us apart, but they can't do that anymore. So now, if it's okay with you, I'd like for us to be a real family." 7. The value of home. Final meaningful conclusion. The Vance estate felt transformed, not by the morning sunlight outside, but by the warm presence of family inside. In the grand living room, a fire crackled merrily as Sophia and Lucas played on the rug. Julian watched from the sofa. Eleanor sat beside him, the proximity comfortable. "They are so much like us," Julian murmured, noting how Lucas methodically tackled a puzzle while Sophia worked by intuition. "Sophia has your artistic eye, and Lucas has your stubborn determination," Eleanor finished with a soft laugh. Julian looked at Eleanor, the distance between them no longer emotional, but filled with complex possibility. "Can we be a family, Eleanor? Or are we two strangers forced to be partners by two children who look like me?" Eleanor stood up, closing the remaining distance between them, until only breath separated them. "I don't know, Julian," she whispered. "I don't know if we can love each other again, or if the past is too heavy. What I do know is we both want the best for those children. And that means, from now on, every decision, every corporate move, every headline in the press will have to be made by the three of us." Julian took her hand, not with the passion of a lover, but with the firm promise of a lifelong partner, bound by blood and a monumental betrayal. "I need to move aggressively to secure Aeronova's future," Julian declared, "and that means my focus will be divided." Eleanor looked out the window at their children laughing under the winter sun. "Lucas wants you to help him build his Lego spaceship," she said softly. "Sophia wants you to teach her to paint like your mother did." Julian looked at the hand he held, then looked out the window at his laughing children. He didn't have the answers. Only one certainty. The life that was stolen from him could not be simply recovered. It would have to be built from scratch, brick by brick, under the watchful eye of a world that waited to see if the millionaire CEO could win the only battle that truly mattered, the one for family. Final CTA. Julian's journey is just beginning. Will his need for corporate justice ruin his fragile family reunification? Comment your predictions and subscribe to see if Julian and Eleanor can truly find love again. 8. The battle for Aeronova's soul. The sun of the morning filtered its first pale rays through the study windows, but calm had not arrived. Julian and Eleanor sat in leather armchairs, the documents of Marcus Thorne's conspiracy scattered across the mahogany table. Outside, the night's frost was slowly melting, symbolizing the dissolving tension, but the air remained thick with unanswered questions. "So, legally it's over," Eleanor said, gathering the last copies of the emails. "Marcus is gone. The board supports you. The corporate battle, yes." Julian nodded, adjusting his tie unconsciously. "But the real war has just begun." He was referring to the 5-year void separating them, the pain of the divorce based on a lie, and the uncertain future of his new family. Eleanor looked at him intensely, her eyes a deep emerald green. "And what about us, Julian? What do we do with the wreckage of a life we never had? 72 hours ago, you were the sterile magnate. I was the single mother. Now, we are co-parents on the cover of the tabloids." A soft knock interrupted the dense atmosphere. Chloe entered, tablet in hand, and a serious expression. "Mr. Vance, I just received an urgent message. Mr. Thorne, from a private jet over the Atlantic, has issued a statement. He denies all accusations, and, more seriously, he has sold all his Aeronova shares to an anonymous hedge fund in the Cayman Islands." Julian stood up sharply. "Anonymous? That's not a retreat. It's a shadow attack. He wants to destabilize the company from the outside." "And there's more," Chloe continued, swallowing hard. "The journalist Ben Carter, though his article was kind, is asking for a second exclusive. He wants an in-depth feature on Lucas and Sophia's new life. He says readers need to see the family reunification process." Eleanor crossed her arms, her determination visible. "That means more cameras, more intrusion into the children's lives. We need to protect them." Julian walked to the window, watching the courtyard. Lucas and Sophia were playing, their distant, bright laughter carrying to the study. "Lucas wants me to help him build his Lego spaceship," Julian murmured, turning back. "Sophia wants me to teach her to paint like my mother did." He turned to look at Eleanor, the distance between them no longer emotional, but filled with complexity. "Can we be a family, Eleanor? Or are we two strangers forced to be partners by two children who look like me?" Eleanor stood up, closing the remaining distance between them until only breath separated them. "I don't know, Julian," she whispered, and for the first time in 5 years, vulnerability crept into her voice. "I don't know if we can love each other again, or if the past is too heavy. What I do know is we both want the best for those children. And that means, from now on, every decision, every corporate move, every headline in the press will have to be taken by the three of us." Julian took her hand, not with the passion of a lover, but with the firm promise of a lifelong partner, bound by blood and a monumental betrayal. "The Vizcaya estate is not a safe haven," Julian declared. "Marcus is gone, but his shadow is long, and the board will grow uneasy if they see any weakness. I need to move aggressively, secure Aeronova's future, and that means my focus will be divided." Interaction point. Julian and Eleanor are forced into an extraordinary partnership. What is the biggest risk they face now? A. Financial ruin from Marcus's shadow attack, or B. The children finding out the real reason for the divorce. Comment your opinion below. 9. The Unbreakable Family Foundation. Final conclusion. The following weeks were a masterclass in high-stakes co-parenting and corporate defense. Julian and Eleanor moved into a temporary, secure apartment near the city, away from the prying eyes of the press. They worked side by side, Julian on the financial counterattack, Eleanor on managing the public narrative, and, crucially, the children's emotional stability. Eleanor, who once felt invisible in Julian's world, proved to be his most valuable partner. Her sharp intelligence and deep understanding of human nature, honed by 5 years of solitary survival, were essential. She helped Julian identify the hedge fund's vulnerability and, more importantly, crafted a public message that turned their crisis into a strength. She did a second interview with Ben Carter, this time focused solely on the children. Instead of denying the scandal, she reframed it. Julian and I were separated by a lie, but we have chosen to put our children first. We are committed to showing them what a united family, built on truth, looks like. The public response was overwhelmingly positive, stabilizing Aeronova's stock price and destroying Marcus's attempt at corporate chaos. One evening, after Julian had secured a massive loan to buy back the sold shares, he found Eleanor in the quiet living room, watching the city lights. "We won, Eleanor," he said, exhaustion and triumph in his voice. "The stock is steady. Marcus is finished." "We won," she corrected, turning to him. "Because you finally learned that your greatest asset isn't your balance sheet. It's the people you trust." He walked toward her, the space between them finally feeling safe. "I know I can't undo the 5 years of my life I lost, but I want to spend the rest of it earning the right to be your husband again." Eleanor looked up at him. She saw the humility, the unwavering presence, and the love that had been there all along, hidden beneath the fear of vulnerability. "I don't know if I can forgive you for leaving," she said softly, "but I have already forgiven the man you were, because he is not the man standing in front of me now." He didn't propose with a ring. He proposed with a promise. "Let's move into that Beacon Hill penthouse. Not as business partners, but as a family. I'm retiring from the CEO role next year. I'm going to teach Lucas how to solve puzzles, and Sophia how to paint. I'm going to be present." Eleanor smiled, a genuine, beautiful smile that erased the last 5 years of pain. "That's the future I'll say yes to, Julian." Julian Vance, the sterile CEO who thought he had everything, finally found the only thing that truly mattered. The messy, beautiful, and hard-earned reality of an unbreakable family. The journey of Julian and Eleanor proves that the ultimate act of ambition is choosing love. If you are moved by their story, leave a final comment on their beautiful ending and subscribe for more unforgettable tales of love and power. Epilogue: The true Vance legacy. The years that followed solidified the foundation Julian and Eleanor had fought so hard to build. The Brickell penthouse became a home, filled with the loud, joyful chaos of Lucas and Sophia. Julian, true to his word, stepped down as CEO a year later, choosing the role of chief strategist, which allowed him the flexibility to be present. His transformation was profound. The man who once lived for the adrenaline of high-stakes deals now found his greatest joy in quiet moments, teaching Lucas how to code simple games, helping Sophia mix paints for her art projects, and, most importantly, sharing bedtime stories with the twins every single night. The scandal with Marcus Thorne faded into corporate history, but the lesson remained. Aeronova, under Julian's strategic guidance, continued to thrive, proving that strong leadership comes from clarity, not constant presence. One sunny afternoon, Julian found Eleanor waiting for him on the terrace. "Dr. Henderson called," Eleanor said, a soft smile playing on her lips. "He asked us to be the keynote speakers for the Children's Hospital Gala next year, to talk about the power of family and second chances." Julian walked over and wrapped his arms around her. "I think you should take the lead on that one, Mrs. Vance." Eleanor laughed, the sound warm and familiar. "You're still trying to push me into the spotlight, Julian." "Not the spotlight," he corrected, looking into her eyes. "The position you deserve. You ran a foundation, managed a crisis, and secured our family's future, all while raising 2 brilliant children. You are the strength in this partnership. And you, she said, resting her hand on his chest, are the anchor. The man who finally realized that the greatest empire you could ever build wasn't in biotech, but right here. Years later, the twins were entering high school. Their resemblance to Julian was striking, but their personalities were a perfect blend of both parents. They were smart, secure, and carried a quiet confidence that came from growing up in an environment built on honesty and presence. Julian often thought of the night in the Vizcaya ballroom, the shattering glass, the terror, the impossible truth. He wouldn't trade the billions, but he would trade that fear and the 5 lost years. Looking at the 2 teenagers laughing in the kitchen, he knew his true legacy was not the success of Aeronova, but the sight of his children thriving, knowing without a doubt that their daddy chose to stay. Final conclusion and CTA. The ultimate triumph of Julian Vance was finding the courage to stay and build the foundation he once abandoned. His life became a testament to the fact that the true measure of a man's wealth is the time he invests in the people he loves. Thank you for following Julian and Eleanor's journey. If their story taught you the value of presence, share this with someone you value and subscribe for more dramatic narratives.